And really, climate action and sustainability, it's no different to any other business challenge that has existed in the past. So, for example, when companies took a focus on quality, or when they took a focus on operational excellence or health and safety, um, there's really no difference really in how it should be implemented into an organization. Once it becomes a priority for a company and all of the people within the company, that change can happen, and it can be supported, and it just becomes what they do. And we probably need to start treating climate action in the same space as quality or health and safety. It's something that we have to do. There's no option not to do it. And the long-term business, I suppose, long-term business success will be determined by the actions that they take in climate action in the coming
Yeah,
years.
yeah, I think that makes sense. I guess, a lot of larger companies have set up functions around CSR, corporate social responsibility, or sustainability teams. And the risk sometimes is that it's a separate entity, or it's a sidebar, I suppose, a team that operates around reporting and governance, etc., and gets involved, at different points within the organization. But for me, the change that needs to occur, and that's required, I suppose, to really, start moving the dial. It needs to be more systemic change within the entire organization. So, so a simple example for me around, I suppose, the whole activity around GDPR over recent years, where data privacy became really baked into everything that organizations did. So there was that aspect of privacy by design. There needs to be similar sort of language, I think, developed around sustainability by design for every aspect of how a business operates and organizes. So we use, I suppose, the other key point, Paul, around for me is around leadership and making sure that leaders are setting the tone and really driving the change forward. We use a very simple leadership model in some of the work that I do around, I suppose, 3 steps. The first being creating the vision, the second around building alignment, and the third around execution. So as you say, there is no huge difference around this as a major change or transformation initiative. You take digital transformation, for example, compared to to climate change. But I think it's very important for leaders to build that vision initially. Okay, what does a greener, what does our greener business look like in 5 years' time? What will be the advantages of having a cleaner, greener, better business? What would it look like? What is that vision? And equally, the alignment, I think, and getting people into that, I suppose, that coalition of, one of my views is that there's a lot of latent interest in organizations in this topic. If businesses were to put more of an opportunity for people to get involved in climate action teams or in sustainability teams, and tap into that interest, tap into that energy, I suppose, that might be within a company for people to get involved and help drive this forward. It does need leadership, to be at the forefront. It needs the top table to be interested and to be supportive, both financially and in terms of energy levels. But there is, I think, the possibility to really get a lot of people involved that may be very aware and very active outside of work, but to bring that energy then into the workplace and drive it forward and help that execution stage.
Yeah, it's one of the things that we would do commonly when we be working on a complete climate action transformation for a company, is we develop a climate action team within the organization, and that would be based across all levels, from leaders right down to the production floor. There would be someone on that team involved, because it allows you to get insights from all over, and it's open to anyone. And you would leave then a process in place whereby anyone within the organization or any supplier can then feed back ideas into that team as well. So it really does need that systematic approach to be successful. successful, really. So, Michael, as one of our youngest panelists today, and as Ivo said, the latest generation of, I suppose, employees and team members within organizations are probably those that are most driven by purpose and different things like that. What are your views on what needs to change within organizations to, I suppose, tap into that passion that the youth would have in climate action?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for any business, an investment in sort of sustainability or improving your green credentials is not just a liability reduction on your end, but it is an investment in your people as well. I can think of many of my peers that would actively not engage with certain industries because of their environmental impact. So by proving that you are a sustainable business, you're opening the available talent pool quite significantly. And I know we've briefly touched on the idea of calculating carbon footprints, but there are other things that businesses need to do to ensure that they remain sustainable and improve over time. And so I just wanted to touch today on the idea of reduction and the idea of science-based targets. So I think it's been mentioned already that the Paris Climate Agreement has committed to limiting global warming between 1.5 and not exceeding 2 degrees C. And I think for a lot of businesses, it's quite tricky to actually understand what that means. Because to actually achieve that, every business has to achieve that. Every business has to reduce their emissions enough to achieve that top limit of 2 degrees C. And so a great way of doing this is actually setting a science-based target for emissions reduction. And there are a few initiatives out there that can certify a target like that. And I think my favorite is probably Science-Based Targets Initiative. So I just wanted to give a brief overview of what that process is and how it works and what some of the benefits are. So first of all, a science-based target is a target that aligns to the Paris Climate Agreement. And that is providing us with a reasonable chance of limiting global warming to 1.5 C or not exceeding 2 degrees C. And the way that will be achieved is by limiting emissions year on year. So the top target there is to reduce your absolute emissions by 4.5% per year until you reach zero. And there's a specific focus there on absolute emissions and not emissions intensity. So if as a business, I'm emitting 100 tons now, I would have to reduce my carbon footprint by 4.5 tons all the way down to zero on an annual basis. But if I grew as a business, obviously that makes it more tricky. But the idea is to reduce annually, absolutely by 4.5%. And so there is a good initiative out there that can kind of guide you in doing this, which is the Science-Based Targets Initiative. And it provides businesses basically with a level playing field, which is very important. And it gives a robust process on how to calculate your emissions, and then a guidance in how to prove that you can reduce it, and then a sort of annual process of assessing your progress. And to actually commit to a science-based target, it's a reasonably simple process, but it can involve quite a lot of work because you have to actually create some tangible actions that are going to reduce your emissions. And it's very difficult to get past that without doing the correct due diligence. So if you were to sign up to a science-based target, the first thing you've got to do is actually create a target. So what are your emissions now, and what are you going to do to ensure you can reduce them by 4.5% per year? There's a lot of guidance available out there. I would say Google is a good source of data. Just Google a science-based targets. And then if you wanted to apply to have this validated, you fill in the paperwork. You have a bit of back and forth between the organisation saying, we're not happy with this data, please improve it. We're not happy with this evidence. I'm not sure if you've got the correct assumptions backing your plan. And then eventually you get your target approved, and this will be then assessed on an annual basis. And as a business, I think if you want to do something good with true environmental impact, and you want to reduce your liability from someone calling you out as greenwashing, having a validated science-based target is a very effective way to do it. And I'd say it comes with a lot of benefits. So we've already mentioned some of the sort of employee benefits. Who doesn't want to work for a business that's responsible and that has a sustainable business model over a 20, 30, 40-year period? Obviously, you've got the reduction in liabilities. If you've got a plan, you know that your business model is sustainable, and you can back it with that seal of approval from a certification scheme, then it's very difficult for someone to call you out for greenwashing. Then you've got the other stakeholders involved as well, and I think we briefly touched on this, but investors, from an ESG perspective, I was reading a good paper by McKinsey last week that 63% of businesses that focus highly on ESG and specifically environmental show positive equity returns versus 8% that didn't. So there's great shareholder value in pursuing something like a science-based target. And the last one is, I think, just general government and political pressure. In September in the UK government released PP0621, and this is basically guidance for anyone bidding for government projects of over £5 million, that you have to calculate all your emissions and then have a validated reduction target, of which a science-based target is specifically mentioned. And then we've seen it in the news this week that the UK government is going to roll out this SDR venture in which all large organisations are going to have to do something similar. So if you want to prepare in advance for these government interventions, then I think calculating your carbon footprint across all three scopes and then putting a sort of robust sustainability strategy in place is going to be a necessity.